So Danny, I'm going to start off with you. You know, we've all been following the Occupy Wall Street protests, and probably some people in this room have been camped out. You know, people are angry. And what can you say to offer hope that there are corporate models that can support long-term social and environmental improvements?
But, you know, the corporate form is perceived as this evil in society. It needn't be, it shouldn't be. It's got to be a vehicle for change and entrepreneurialism, and I think for benefit corporations can be a big part of that. So that's one answer to your question. The other is just, it's not just sort of the process or the form of the company, it's what they do. So Sungevity, for example, we think we're giving people their power back, you know, both literally and figuratively. We are a residential solar company. We make it easy and affordable for you to go solar, so please go to sungevity.com and get a quote. We'll make it easy and worth your while, probably save you some money on your electricity bill. And, you know, that's important in this day and age for all the good reasons we know. You know, clean energy coming out the back of that machine on your roof, the jobs that it creates in the community that are not offshoreable, the values it engenders for future generations. So it's what is the business doing, and certainly we believe we're building an energized network of consumers who become a base for that clean energy economy. And so the last thing I'll say is just, it's not only got to be the product, you know, the electricity service, which is better than the bad stuff we get out of the grid right now. It's got to be how it's financed. That's the core of the business, and this goes back to Wall Street and the Occupy movement. You know, we have to get beyond the banks. They've done us a disservice. The US financial services industry will be written down in the history books for good reason.
If you're in the clean energy or environmental community right now, it's pretty easy to feel discouraged. But I think we should take heart, and first, we shouldn't gloss over how much we've gotten done in the last 3 years for clean energy and for the environment. And I'd point to a couple things. The first is the Recovery Act, which invested $80 billion into building the industries of the future, the clean energy industries like solar and biofuels and advanced batteries and electric vehicles and smart grid. You know, it's pretty certain that without that, these industries would have stalled out or gone overseas. And so now we have these thriving industries moving clean energy forward. Probably the biggest investment that's public or private that's been made in the US in any administration. So that's a huge achievement. I'd also point to CAFE standards, twice, right? So first to 35.5 miles per gallon by 2016, then to 54.5 miles per gallon by 2025. So doubling the environmental performance of our nation's fleet by 2025. So that's just huge. I mean, the amount of toxics that's going to, forget all the other reasons you want to do these things, just the amount of toxics that's going to take out of our air and water is worth it alone.
There are a lot of people who want the latest electronic device. I won't even ask for a show of hands how many of you now have the new iPhone. But, you know, it creates really daunting environmental challenges to have that kind of consumerism and software related. So, but we also hear about cloud computing and some other technologies that seem to offer the opportunity to reduce the amount of hardware and servers. So, you know, what's the net take, in your opinion, on these innovations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I'd say a lot of the devices that you're seeing out there, the sensors and the smartphones, are enabling us to take advantage of increases in efficiency, like smart grid, smart buildings, smart transportation. But that, in no way does that get us off the hook to reduce toxins in tablets and smartphones and servers. You know, we need to be looking for continuous improvement, both in the way we do the cloud and in how we design and dispose of products over time. Bill McDonough, the green architect, said, you know, we're not looking for less bad. We're looking to design more good. We're looking for really regenerative, restorative approaches to designing, building technology. Having said that, the cloud's moving in some really interesting directions if we get it right. About 2% of electricity in this country is consumed by data centers, like companies like Yahoo, and about 40% of that energy comes from coal plants, so which produce a lot of mercury, NOx, SOx, in addition to greenhouse gases. So the old way of doing things is what my friend Don Carley calls, in terms of building the infrastructure to support all of the internet and all of that information in data centers. We were kind of building cathedrals for Easter and Christmas. We're building huge amounts of capacity to support certain number of days where you get really high volume traffic. So Super Bowl Sunday comes around, everybody logs on and searches for that Megan Fox commercial. And then the rest of the year, all those servers and all those, they're underutilized. So what the cloud's trying to do is really create a structure whereby 24/7, you're making a lot better use of all of that capacity. You're able to move it around. It's just enabling the moving of data in a way that's pretty unprecedented and allows us to increase efficiency. So Carbon Disclosure Project, which is a great organization, they estimated that in the United States, the cloud can, if it's done right again, save about $12 billion a year for companies and reduce the equivalent of 200 million barrels of oil every year in terms of what's produced. But we still need to keep in mind, and Greenpeace did a great study called How Dirty Is Your Data Center that came out this spring, that it's still coming from coal, so we still need to move forward on that. The other thing that I'd say is, in terms of getting back to the toxins, CEH is doing some great work. They've done a green guide for purchase and disposal electronics for the healthcare industry that's tremendously valuable. Greenpeace has a greener guide for electronics, which is a great, and there's the e-steward standard for disposal of your toxins, which is something that we really believe in terms of making sure that the end of life for these things are taken care of responsibly. So we need to get more better, not just less bad in both of those categories.
Just to follow up on the CEH and electronic guidance, so their guidance for healthcare was adopted by Kaiser Permanente. We were one of the early signatories. Along with Pathak Healthcare West, who is also here tonight, so congratulations to them too.
But we don't need just to do less bad, we need to do more good, and you can unleash market force to create that with the right vehicles in that field. So that's where I believe we locate ourselves, and B Corps locate themselves, and a lot of the people CEH is reaching across the aisle now are trying to work in that area too. How do we create more good?
You've been a big advocate for corporate transparency around environmental performance, and that's been a foundational value at CEH. So why is that not the norm in business today?
I think thanks to organizations like CEH and Carbon Disclosure Project, it is increasingly becoming the norm because you're making sure we eat our spinach. And it really is good for us in addition to being good for the planet. So, because I think the reason why it's not the norm is because, especially in this economic climate, we become so focused on a very small set of metrics around money, around monetary growth, on a quarterly basis, and that becomes so much the focus that a lot of other stuff falls by the wayside. But it really is good for us to pay attention to this from a business perspective.
These technologies are finally, one after the other, starting to hit cost and performance parity with traditional technologies. I don't know if Danny would agree with me, but in the next several years, I think we're going to start to be seeing this shift. And that's great. And let me just give you one example in the area of renewable chemicals. So a company I'm working with is called Solazyme, and they convert sugar from sugarcane and ultimately cellulosics into oils for fuels, chemicals, food oils, and cosmetics even. You can see them in Sephora stores. And one of those chemicals, one of the first chemicals is oils for dielectric fluid for insulating transformers. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry that, as you may know, had been dominated by PCBs, right? And so what we're doing on the energy side is replacing coal plants. And what we're doing on the chemical side is replacing oil refineries and the material side. So all of the toxics associated with that value chain can be replaced, and we're starting to see that shift.